They underestimated me, and paid for it quietly. Before I tell you what happened that Monday morning, I need you to understand something. If you've ever been dismissed by people who should have valued you, if you've ever watched someone steal credit for your work while everyone applauded them, this story is for you. My name is Connor Walsh. I'm 27 years old, and 6 months ago, I walked into my office in Sydney only to have everything stripped away in 15 minutes. But what they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for betrayal longer than they'd been planning it. Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest weapon you'll ever have. Let me show you exactly how I turned their arrogance into their downfall without ever raising my voice. I arrived at Sutton Wine Distributors on a Monday morning at 8, coffee in hand, ready for my usual client calls. The Alexandria office smelled like coffee and the harbor breeze coming through open windows. I'd worked there for 3 years, building relationships, closing deals, becoming the invisible engine that kept the business running. Gemma's assistant intercepted me at the door. "Connor, Gemma and Bradley need to see you immediately." Conference room. Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. I walked down the hall to find Gemma Sutton and her son Bradley seated at the conference table. The HR manager sat in the corner with a folder. No one smiled. No greeting. Bradley slid a folder across the table. "Effective immediately, you're being reassigned to Junior Sales Associate. You'll report to me. Your office is being cleared as we speak." I stared at him, unable to process the words. Junior Sales Associate. After 3 years of bringing in 70% of their revenue. Why? I managed to ask. Bradley's smile was cold. "We're restructuring. I'm taking over your client relationships. You'll handle administrative support and small accounts. This isn't a discussion." Through the glass wall, I saw 2 workers packing up my office. My awards. My photos. My client files. Everything that proved I'd built something. I sat frozen in that conference room, Bradley's words echoing in my head. "You misunderstood." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. Found the email from 18 months ago. Gemma's words were clear. "You're on partner track. 15% equity after year 3 if targets met. You've exceeded expectations." I showed her the screen. She barely glanced at it. "That email was taken out of context," Gemma said. I said if conditions were right. "They're not." Bradley leaned forward. "Mate, you've done good work, but you've been overestimating your value. Most of those clients came through family connections and our reputation. You were just the account manager." The lie was so bold it took my breath away. I'd brought those clients. I'd built those relationships. I'd saved deals Bradley didn't even know were falling apart. But they sat there with complete confidence, rewriting history like it was easy. I stood up, legs weak. Left the conference room. My new desk was in the open plan area next to the warehouse entrance. No walls. No privacy. No dignity. Bradley's name was already on my old office door. That evening, I met my girlfriend Sophie at our usual cafe in Newtown. The place was crowded, warm, familiar. I needed familiar right now. "I got demoted today," I said. "Bradley took over everything. My office, my clients, my future with the company." Sophie's reaction was wrong. Not shocked. Not angry for me. Just quiet. Almost uncomfortable. "Did you know about this?" I asked slowly. She looked at her coffee cup. "Bradley approached me 3 weeks ago at an industry mixer. We've been having coffee meetings." My chest tightened. "What kind of meetings?" "He told me you were underperforming. That the company was carrying you." I believed him because he's the owner's son. Why would he lie? I stared at her. 3 weeks. She'd been distant for 3 weeks. I thought she was stressed about work. "What did you tell him about me?" My voice sounded far away. "Just normal stuff. About your day. Your clients. The deals you were working on." The cafe noise faded. Everything clicked into place. Sophie had been reporting our private conversations back to Bradley. My strategies. My concerns. My vulnerabilities. Everything I'd told her in confidence, Bradley knew. Over the next week, I watched a coordinated attack on my reputation unfold. Bradley sent a company-wide email crediting himself for my biggest deals from the past year. The Tokyo buyer I'd spent 6 months courting. The Singapore chain I'd personally flown to meet. All Bradley's wins now. Suppliers who used to call me directly were told to go through Bradley for all Australian accounts. Clients received calls from Bradley saying I was transitioning to a support role due to performance issues. My work emails were being monitored. I knew because Bradley referenced a private client conversation I'd had via email that morning. He couldn't have known about it unless he was reading my messages. The worst moment came when I walked past Bradley's office. He was on the phone with a client, door open. Between you and me, Connor's been struggling. Personal issues. We're keeping him on out of kindness, but I'm your point person now. I stood there invisible in my own workplace, listening to him destroy my reputation with lies delivered in a sympathetic voice. This wasn't just a demotion. This was systematic erasure. I went home to my Surrey Hills apartment that night and opened my laptop. Enough pretending. Enough staying humble. Time to remember who I really was. I pulled up my credentials. Master Sommelier Certification. One of only 270 people worldwide with this qualification. Graduate of the Court of Master Sommelier's rigorous program, passing rates so low they made medical school look easy. Former head buyer for Sterling & Hayes in Napa Valley. $60 million in annual purchases. I'd tasted wines in chateaus across France, vineyards in Chile, cellars in New Zealand. I took the Sutton job 3 years ago because I wanted international experience and Gemma promised partnership. I'd been operating at 30% of my capability, staying humble, building relationships slowly. My humility was mistaken for weakness. My patience was mistaken for inability. I opened a file I'd maintained since month 6 at Sutton. Detailed records of every client relationship, every deal structure, every personal connection. Every bottle I'd recommended. Every dinner I'd hosted. Every problem I'd solved. I'd titled the file, In Case of Emergency. The emergency had arrived. I still had access to Sutton's financial systems. My old role included budget oversight, and it hadn't revoked my login yet. I started digging. The numbers shocked me. Sutton Wine's annual revenue was $68 million. My accounts generated $47 million. 69% of their total revenue. Bradley's accounts generated $8 million. 12%, most of them clients he'd inherited. But there was something else buried in the records. Payments to consulting firms I'd never heard of. $340,000 over 3 years. I traced the companies. Shell corporations. All owned by Bradley. He'd been embezzling from his own mother's company. Then I found payments to Sophie's marketing firm. $85,000 for marketing services. I checked the deliverables. Nothing. No campaigns. No materials. No work product at all. Sophie's failing marketing firm had been paid $85,000 by Sutton while she was dating me. My hands shook as I downloaded everything. Bank statements. Payment records. Email trails. Evidence of fraud hiding in plain sight. The relationship was part of the strategy. Sophie wasn't just reporting to Bradley. She was on his payroll. I confronted Sophie at her apartment the next evening. She opened the door in her work clothes, surprised to see me. "We need to talk," I said. I showed her the payment records on my laptop. $85,000 from Sutton to her marketing firm. Services never rendered. Her face went pale. "Connor, I can explain." "Then explain." She sat down heavily. "Bradley approached me 8 months ago. Before we even started dating. He offered to pay my firm for marketing work. But he wanted something else. He wanted me to get close to you. Report on your client relationships. Your strategies. Your plans." The words felt like physical blows. "You were paid to date me?" "I needed the money. My firm was failing. I was going to lose everything. She started crying. But I did start to care about you. That part was real. Was it? I stood up. Because you spent 8 months lying to me while taking money to spy on me. There's something else, she whispered. Bradley's been recording our phone calls. He has audio of you complaining about Gemma's business decisions. He's going to use them to paint you as disloyal if you fight back. At work, the isolation became systematic. Bradley instructed staff not to include me in meetings. My access to the customer database was revoked. My company credit card was cancelled. I was moved to a desk in the warehouse, away from the main office. Former colleagues who used to have lunch with me now avoided eye contact. Bradley had told them I was being performance managed. That associating with me was career limiting. I ate lunch alone in my car, watching through the window as everyone else laughed in the break room. Then a colleague named Fiona Lee slipped me a note. Senior sales coordinator, early 40s, always professional. She'd worked at Sutton for 15 years. The note said, I know what they're doing. I'm keeping records. Be patient. Just those 2 sentences. But they meant I wasn't crazy. Someone else saw the truth. That afternoon, I received an email from Bradley. Subject line: Urgent performance review. Scheduled for Friday. I knew what it was. A paper trail for termination. Fabricated evidence to justify firing me and keeping my clients. Friday came too fast. The performance review was brutal. Bradley and the HR manager sat across from me with a thick document. They went through it page by page. Missed client meetings. I had calendar proof I'd attended every one. Poor sales performance. They showed charts excluding my actual accounts. Unprofessional conduct. Complaints from colleagues. Audio recordings of me criticizing Gemma that Bradley had gotten through Sophie. The HR manager slid a performance improvement plan across the table. You have 30 days to meet these targets or we'll have to let you go. I read the requirements. Impossible targets. Designed to fail. My hands shook as I held the document. They wanted me to sign it. Acknowledge their lies. Accept their narrative. I stood up. Looked Bradley in the eye. I won't be signing this, I said calmly. And I won't be coming back tomorrow. Consider this my resignation. Bradley's smirk widened. Running away. Typical. You were never tough enough for this business. I walked out of Sutton Wine Distributors for the last time. But I wasn't running. I was finally done playing their game. I went home and opened my laptop. Pulled up my client list. 23 key accounts. Relationships I'd built personally over 3 years. I wrote one email. Carefully worded. Professional. After 3 rewarding years at Sutton Wine, I'm pursuing an independent venture. I wanted you to hear this from me personally. I'll be in touch within 14 days about how I can continue serving your wine needs with the same dedication and expertise you've come to expect. Thank you for your trust and partnership. Connor Walsh, Master Sommelier. I included my MS credentials for the first time. Most clients didn't know I had them. Master Sommelier was the highest distinction in wine service worldwide. I hit send to all 23 clients at once. Within 4 hours, 19 clients responded asking for immediate meetings. 3 clients asked what took me so long to go independent. My phone rang. Alastair Park, my Hong Kong distributor. $12 million in annual orders. Connor, what happened? Bradley called me this morning saying you were fired for incompetence. I didn't believe a word. Tell me you're starting your own operation. I am, I said. Good. When can we meet? Over the next 5 days, I met with every client. The conversations followed the same pattern. They were furious about Bradley's calls. He'd been patronizing, dismissive of their business, arrogant about his family's reputation. Everything I'd never been. Every client said the same thing. They worked with Connor Walsh, not Sutton Wine. I was the relationship. I was the expertise. I was why they paid Sutton's premium prices. The Tokyo buyer said it best: "You found us wines no one else could source. You flew to meet our staff on your own money. What has Sutton ever done besides send catalogs?" Client after client committed to following me to whatever I built next. I kept a running total: $38 million in annual orders. More than half of Sutton's entire revenue. I registered Walsh & Partners wine distribution within 48 hours. Leased warehouse space in Alexandria. Set up import licenses. Built infrastructure fast. Bradley called me, panicking. "What are you telling our clients? They're all canceling contracts. This is illegal. You signed a non-compete." "Read my contract again, Bradley," I said calmly. "There is no non-compete clause. Your mother was too confident I'd never leave." The line went silent. While I built Walsh & Partners, Sophie showed up at my apartment at 11 at night. She was crying, mascara running down her face. "Connor, please. I need to talk to you." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch, looking broken. "Bradley turned on me," she said. "He refused to pay the final $30,000 he promised. He's threatening to expose our arrangement if I contact you. I'm sorry for everything. I want to help you now. I'll testify about his schemes." Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me still wanted the relationship to have been real. My phone buzzed. Text from Fiona Lee. "Don't trust Sophie. She's wearing a wire. Bradley sent her to record you admitting to client poaching." I saw the equipment invoice. I looked at Sophie's purse on my kitchen counter. Large. Heavy. Suspicious. She was still working for Bradley. Still trying to trap me. I took a breath and made my voice calm. "Sophie, I can't help you with anything related to Sutton Wine. My attorney has advised me not to discuss former clients or business practices." She tried again. "But if you used confidential information to steal clients?" "I didn't steal anyone," I said carefully, aware of the recording device in her purse. "My former clients chose to work with me personally. That's their right as independent businesses. If you're here as a friend, I appreciate it. If you're here for other reasons, I think you should leave." Sophie tried several more times to get me to say something incriminating. I refused every attempt. Finally, frustrated, she grabbed her purse and left. The next day, my attorney Helen Frost received a cease and desist letter from Sutton. They were threatening to sue me for $50 million in damages for client poaching. Attached to the letter was an audio recording of Sophie's visit to my apartment. Helen listened to it, then smiled. "Connor, you handled this perfectly. The recording proves nothing against you. But listen to this." She played the beginning of the recording. Before Sophie entered my apartment, you could hear Bradley's voice coaching her. Get him to admit he stole clients. Get him to say he used confidential information. They'd recorded themselves conspiring to entrap me. "This is legal gold," Helen said. "We're filing a counterclaim." Helen filed our counterclaim against Sutton for constructive dismissal, breach of verbal partnership agreement, defamation, and conspiracy. She subpoenaed their complete financial records. The forensic audit revealed everything. Bradley's $340,000 in embezzlement through fake consulting firms. Sophie's $85,000 in fraudulent contracts. Emails showing Gemma knew about Bradley's schemes but did nothing. Most damaging, systematic fraud in how they calculated my commissions. I'd been underpaid $180,000 over 3 years. Then the auditor found something worse. Sutton Wine owed $2.3 million to the Australian Tax Office for unpaid GST. Gemma had been deferring tax payments to cover cash flow problems. The company was technically insolvent. Helen laid out the evidence in her office. "Connor, they're finished. The tax office will force them into administration. Bradley will face criminal charges. Gemma might lose everything." I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. "What happens next?" I asked. "We wait," Helen said. And we watched them collapse. While the legal case proceeded, Bradley escalated to psychological warfare. Fake online reviews appeared claiming I was unethical and stole from clients. Anonymous emails went to my new clients warning them I was under investigation for fraud. Industry forums filled with posts suggesting my master sommelier credential was fake. Comments calling me a con artist. Messages designed to destroy my reputation. I started receiving late-night calls from blocked numbers. Sometimes silence. Sometimes Bradley's voice saying, "You'll never work in this industry again." My sleep suffered. I'd wake at 3 in the morning, heart pounding, checking my phone for new attacks. My confidence wavered. Maybe I'd made a mistake leaving Sutton. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. Then Fiona Lee called me urgently. "Connor, Bradley's planning something big. He's been meeting with someone from Australian Border Force. I think he's trying to report your visa status as problematic." My blood ran cold. I was American. My work visa was sponsored by my business. If immigration believed I'd obtained it fraudulently, I could be deported. The immigration complaint arrived 2 weeks later. Bradley claimed my work visa had been sponsored under false pretenses. That I'd claimed partnership at Sutton that never existed. That I was now working illegally through Walsh and Partners. It was frivolous. My visa was valid. My new business was properly registered. But frivolous complaints still required responses. Legal fees. Stress. Interviews with immigration officials. I sat across from an immigration officer in a sterile government building, trying to prove I wasn't a criminal. "Mr. Walsh, we've received allegations that you engaged in corporate espionage while working at Sutton Wine Distributors." My stomach dropped. "That's completely false. The complainant has provided evidence. Emails showing you accessed confidential supplier contracts after your resignation. Chat logs suggesting you shared trade secrets with competitors." They showed me the documents. Sophisticated forgeries. Doctored emails with my name. Fake chat conversations I'd never had. "None of that is real," I said. "I can prove it." Helen brought in a digital forensics expert. He examined every document Bradley had submitted. The emails were photoshopped. Metadata didn't match. The chat logs were fabricated. Timestamps had inconsistencies that proved they were fake. Sophie's sworn statement contradicted her earlier recorded statements. The immigration case was dismissed. But the damage was done. I broke down in Helen's office after the immigration interview. For the first time since this started, I couldn't hold it together anymore. "I'm building a successful business," I said, crying. "My clients love me. And I'm still being destroyed by people who couldn't compete fairly." Helen handed me tissues and waited. When I could breathe again, she spoke gently. "Connor, you're experiencing trauma. What Bradley's doing isn't just business competition. It's psychological warfare. You should talk to someone." She gave me a therapist's card. I took it. That night, I sat in my apartment alone and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down. The betrayal. The fear. The exhaustion of fighting people who had more resources than me. But I also remembered something. Bradley was spending all his energy trying to destroy me. He wasn't running his business. He was obsessed with revenge. That obsession was going to cost him everything. While Bradley focused on destroying me, Sutton Wine collapsed. The numbers were catastrophic. 71% revenue loss. My $47 million in clients were gone. Monthly operating losses of $2.1 million. The tax office demanded immediate payment of the $2.3 million in unpaid GST. Suppliers refused to ship without cash up front. 14 of 18 employees quit. Gemma put the business into voluntary administration. A receiver was appointed to liquidate assets. The receiver called me. "Mr. Walsh, you're listed as a creditor for $180,000 in unpaid commissions. There's a note in the files suggesting you might be interested in acquiring certain assets. Would you like to submit an offer?" I sat with that question for 3 days. Part of me wanted to let Sutton die. Watch it burn. Walk away satisfied that justice had been served. But another part remembered the good employees. Fiona Lee, who'd kept records and warned me. Others who'd been caught in Bradley's schemes. I thought about Gemma's late husband who'd built Sutton over 40 years. A good man whose legacy was being destroyed by his grandson. I submitted an offer, $1.8 million for complete acquisition. The settlement meeting happened in a conference room overlooking Sydney Harbour. Gemma sat across from me, looking 20 years older than when I'd started working for her 3 years ago. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "After everything Bradley did to you?" I thought about that question. Revenge would have been letting Sutton die. Satisfaction would have been watching her lose everything. "Because I'm not Bradley," I said. We signed the papers. Walsh and Partners acquired Sutton Wine Distributors. I kept the Sutton name to honor her late husband. Not for her. Not for Bradley. For the man who'd built something good that his family had nearly destroyed. Walking out of that meeting, I felt something shift. The anger I'd been carrying started to lift. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about building something better. That evening, Sophie contacted me. She'd been fired from her marketing firm after they discovered the fake Sutton invoices. She was facing potential fraud charges. She asked me not to press charges. Said she'd been manipulated. That she was sorry. That she'd lost everything. I made her an offer. "I won't pursue criminal charges," I told Sophie through my attorney. "But you have to provide complete sworn testimony about Bradley's conspiracy. Return every dollar you were paid. $85,000. And never contact me again personally." Sophie agreed immediately. She was broke, scared, facing prison time. "Can I ask you something?" she said before we ended the call. "Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just a source of intelligence once you found out?" I thought about that. About the woman I'd thought I was dating. The relationship I believed was real. "I cared about who I thought you were," I said. "That person never existed." With Sophie's testimony, the evidence of embezzlement, and the fabricated immigration complaint, authorities charged Bradley with multiple crimes. Fraud. Conspiracy. Making false statements to government officials. Defamation. His attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. Bradley refused. He was still convinced he'd done nothing wrong. That I'd stolen his birthright. That he was the victim. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Bradley's attorney presented a sympathy defense. Bradley was protecting his family's legacy from an outsider who'd manipulated his way into the company. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was packed. Media had picked up the story. Local wine industry scandal. Family business destroyed by heirs' crimes. Bradley stood before the judge, still defiant. Still convinced he was right. 4 years in prison, the judge said. Minimum 2 years served with good behavior. $520,000 in restitution. Banned from holding corporate office for 10 years. Bradley's face went white. In the gallery, Gemma started crying quietly. The judge continued. "Mr. Sutton, you had every advantage. A family business. A mother who trusted you. Instead, you chose to embezzle, to lie, to systematically destroy a colleague who was making you money. This sentence reflects the calculated nature of your crimes." Bradley looked at me as the bailiff led him away. "You took everything from me." I spoke quietly, just loud enough for him to hear. "No, Bradley. You took everything from yourself. I just refused to let you take me with you." Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked me, "How does it feel to win?" I thought about that question. This isn't winning. Winning would have been if Bradley had just let me do my job. I spent the next year rebuilding. Sutton Walsh Wine Distribution combined Walsh and Partners' new business with Sutton's legacy operations. I promoted Fiona Lee to operations director with 12% equity. I hired back the loyal employees. Brought in 2 partners from my Napa Valley days. Built a team based on competence and trust. Combined revenue hit 62 million in year one. More than Sutton had ever made under Gemma. But success didn't fix everything. I struggled psychologically. Nightmares about the immigration interviews. Trust issues in relationships. Hypervigilance about business partners. I saw threats everywhere. I started seeing the therapist Helen had recommended. Talking through the trauma helped. Slowly, I began to heal. 2 years after the trial, a letter arrived from prison. Bradley's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away without reading it. But something made me open it. 8 pages. Handwritten. No excuses. He explained how he was raised believing the business was his birthright. How he felt threatened when I proved more capable. How ego overrode ethics. I destroyed you not because you deserved it, he wrote, but because your competence was a mirror showing my inadequacy. Bradley's letter continued. He'd used prison time for therapy. Confronting his narcissism. Understanding the damage he'd caused. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. Just acknowledging the truth. The final paragraph said, "You showed mercy by not pursuing maximum charges. I don't deserve a second chance. But if you ever have use for a warehouse worker who's learned humility the hardest way possible, I'll be released in 6 months." I put the letter down and thought about it for weeks. Did Bradley deserve a second chance? Did I owe him anything? I decided mercy wasn't about what he deserved. It was about who I wanted to be. When Bradley was released, I offered him a job. Warehouse worker. Entry-level wage. No special treatment. He'd report to Fiona Lee, the woman he'd once dismissed as administrative staff. Bradley accepted without negotiation. He showed up for work on time. Did his job quietly. Never asked for more. He was rebuilding from absolute bottom. Sophie moved to Melbourne. Got legitimate work in marketing. Sent me a Christmas card every year. I never responded. Some bridges stay burned. Gemma lived in a modest apartment, volunteering at wine education charities. We were civil but never close. Some relationships can't be repaired. 5 years after that Monday morning ambush, I sat in my office at Sutton Walsh Wine Distribution Headquarters. The view overlooked Sydney Harbour, the same view from the restaurant where this had all started. The company operated across Australia and Asia now. 95 million in annual revenue. 52 employees. Offices in Sydney and Hong Kong. Recognized as one of Australia's top wine distributors. Fiona was COO with 12% equity. I owned 65%. 2 partners held the remainder. Bradley worked in the warehouse earning $58,000 a year. He was reliable, quiet, rebuilding slowly. His mother visited sometimes. They were trying to repair their relationship. At an industry awards dinner, I received Master Sommelier of the Year for Australia and Pacific. Standing at the podium, I looked out at faces that had doubted me 5 years ago. I talked about resilience. About being underestimated. About quiet persistence winning over loud arrogance. I didn't mention Bradley or the betrayal. That story was done. This was about what I'd built after everything was taken away. After the speech, a young wine professional approached me. "How did you handle the pressure of starting your own company?" I thought about his question. How did I handle it? The betrayal, the psychological warfare, the immigration threats, the nights I couldn't sleep? I decided being underestimated was a gift, I said. While they were watching me fail, I was building something they couldn't see. The revenge was never in destroying them. It was in becoming someone they could never diminish again. The young man nodded, writing that down like it was wisdom. Maybe it was. Walking home that night, I thought about the journey. From that conference room where Bradley stripped away my title to this moment where I owned the company that tried to erase me. They underestimated me because I looked like someone who could be broken. They used every weapon they had. Gaslighting. Relationship manipulation. Legal threats. Immigration attacks. Psychological warfare designed to crush me. But they forgot something crucial. Being underestimated only works if you internalize it. I never did. They paid for underestimating me not through my anger but through their own collapse. I won by becoming exactly what they feared. Someone who didn't need their permission to succeed. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let someone else's underestimation become your ceiling. The quietest revenge is simply building something so good they can't ignore it. That's not revenge. That's legacy.